So here's our front assist housing out of the 7510, and in the bottom here, I don't know how well you can see that or not, there's some grooving down in there, pretty bad, probably 20-30 thousandths deep, and I'm afraid that the only way to fix that correctly is to take it to a machine shop, have them sleeve it if they can. Reman housing or repaired housing for one of these is about $1,000. The reason that went out, and there was some side play on the shaft, and the reason it happened is because of the tapered roller bearings. They lost some of their tension and there was more end play there than there should have been, and that's what caused the side load in that case. The bearings themselves are fine, but here's one of the shims that controls the end play. It goes on the end of the shaft here, end of that housing. There's another broken piece. So that's why that happened. Also, when I pulled this out, there's supposed to be sealing rings here and here. There was no rings on there at all, and which basically, you know, probably was the problem, most of the problem. But I still feel like I need to take this clutch apart and make sure that the sealing rings inside here are okay. The only issue is I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, because there are some Belleville springs in here, and they put tension on this clutch discs, and you're supposed to put pressure on this with a press while you take this nut off after you unstake it here. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to be able to do that yet. Maybe in a vise, something improvised here. We'll find out here shortly. So that's what I'm doing. So because I don't have a press, you're supposed to have a John Deere tool that comes up over the top and down to press on this outer piece here. These are where your washers are. And what I had to do was use a nut, and because I didn't have two of the same nut, I had to use the bolt head of the bolt. And I laid that on its side here in the vise, and I then put back side of the claw on that side, and then put the claw across on these 2 points here, enough that I could get the nut started to get loose. Had to use a hammer and a screwdriver, or a chisel, and I got it loose here. So I think now we're in the downhill phase. I mean, everything's loose, nothing's gonna spring out here at me. So we're gonna take this apart here. Let's see what the guts of this look like. If I could have pressured this up independently, I would have done that and avoided this. I'm gonna have to set this on its side, I think, unless I can pop it out of there without. There we go. So those are your Belleville washers. There, you can see there's some taper to them, but there's just 2 of them. And all those do is put that spring tension on your clutches. So I'm going to go ahead and set this down for a second. I'm going to flop this over and try to dump out this piston, see what the O-rings look like. So I got this popped apart here. Wasn't a real big deal. I mean, there's the nut, Belleville washers, or bevel washers, or whatever you call them. And then there's this portion here, which slips on over the O-rings, and those are what the Belleville washers push against, and that in turn pushes against this and compresses the spring pack. So the hydraulic disengagement oil comes in here and will put pressure against this plate and will push apart. It'll push away these washers, and that will release this clutch pack for when you're out of front assist, and that's what I don't have now. And I was worried about this sealing washer and this sealing washer, but they're both intact. I'd have been alright if I'd have left this alone, but when you're in this deep, it's hard not to be thorough. and make sure you don't have to go back in and do a job twice. So now I need all the sealing washers. Even the bearings on this were okay. I mean, they're really alright. There's no pitting, nothing going on. This is such a stupid thing to have happen on this thing. I'm a little upset by having to go this far for something this minimal, but it is what it is. Get some parts, get it back together, and hope it all works, right?